Hi, this is Aaron Smith from the Ayn Rand Institute, and what I want to do in this video is respond to a question that was sent in to us by a student named Sophia. And what Sophia wanted to know was, where could she find a step-by-step proof of the objectivist ethics? In other words, a step-by-step proof of Ayn Rand's moral theory. It's a good question, but the first thing I would say is that if what you're looking for is a step-by-step proof, and what you mean by that is something like you assemble a set of propositions and derive conclusions from them, I think that there is no such objectivist, or no such proof of the objectivist ethics. But that's because the proof is not deductive, it's inductive. In other words, the proof consists in generalizing from your observations about reality. I mean, that's how Ayn Rand came to form the theory in the first place. So when you think of any of the principles of the objectivist ethics, such as that reason is man's means of survival, that rationality is the primary or central virtue of the objectivist ethics, or egoism, that your ultimate goal in your life ought to be your own life and your own happiness. If you think about any of those kinds of principles, I mean, first, obviously, you have to ask and kind of dig into a little bit, like, what does it mean to say that reason is man's means of survival? What does it mean to really live a life that's selfish and so on? You have to dig into what that means. But once you've done that, and what you have to do is you have to ask yourself, does this fit with what I can observe in my own life? Does it fit with what I can observe about people, about what kinds of values they pursue, about what are the consequences of certain courses of action? Like, what happens when people try to live for others or live for God or make, religion or something a central aspect to their moral life? What happens if you just do whatever you feel like doing? And like, what does it look like to lead lives like that? What does it look like to lead a selfish life, in the sense that Ayn Rand means, a rationally selfish life? So the essence is, before you can fit these principles into like a system and then connect them and figure out how to reach conclusions from them, you have to first ask, are any of these principles true? And how you figure out whether they're true is you have to actually, what are the observations that are at least allegedly captured or summarized or integrated by the kinds of principles that she offers in her moral theory? So you have to keep your focus outward. Look at the world, look at other people's lives, look at your own lives, and this is why literature is so important. Literature and history. Watch what happens when people live a certain way, and what happens when they live a different kind of way. So, So the proof, I'll summarize this point, is that the proof of the objectivist ethics is inductive. In other words, it's about looking at the facts and gathering the kinds of observations and integrating them in the kind of way that Rand thinks that you ought to. But it's worth saying that this isn't just true of Ayn Rand's moral theory. I think it's true of theories generally. Theories aren't deductions, except perhaps in mathematics. They're complex ways of summarizing and integrating a wide range of observations. And that what a proof looks like is, or what it requires, is considering a whole range of observations. There are actual range of observations that are supposed to be integrated by the theory. The observations that the theory is supposed to help explain. So just as an example, think of Darwin's theory of natural selection. I mean, Darwin spent a lifetime collecting data, collecting observations from a wide range of the species, across the animal kingdom, and considering objections to his theory. So a lot of it is, it's in the proof is in the observations and in the way you integrate them. And similarly, Ayn Rand spent a lifetime observing people, looking at, like, what is it they value? Why do they live in the ways that they do? And what happens to them when they conduct their lives in certain kinds of ways, and drawing real conclusions about that. I mean, that's how she gets to her own moral theory. The result of all those observations, in essence, is her own original moral theory. Now, I've been talking a lot about induction, in approaching things from generalizing from observations versus some kind of step-by-step, if-then-therefore sort of proof. But this is not at all to disparage deduction. Deduction is a crucial aspect of reasoning. But the reason why I'm moving you away from that, or at least that's how I imagine you might be thinking about proof, is that many people, when they think about proof, think about mathematics as the model. But mathematical proof is a very specialized kind of proof. But outside of math, proof is inductive. Now, when it comes to your thinking about objectivism, you may not have all the data that you need to think about, is objectivism true? Are the principles that she advocates actually correct? Do they fit with what's true in life? And so in that regard, you have to take objectivism or any complex theory as a kind of promissory note. In other words, it's an interesting or promising theory that you can connect with and think of as aspects of it are right, but there's much more data collection, much more thinking that you need to do to figure out, does this really ring true with life, when you consider a wide range of facts. And so part of it is it takes time, it takes a bit of age, and it takes a bit of paying attention to the world and thinking hard about it. So it's that's what I mean about having objectivism as some kind of a promissory note. It's a complex theory, and there's a lot that goes into it, and so you have to think about that. Now, if one of the things, if what you're looking for is a summary or an outline of the objectivist ethics, where you get its major principles and how they fit together, then I would take a look at Ayn Rand's essay called The Objectivist Ethics. It's, the first essay in her book, The Virtue of Selfishness. And there you'll find that. And it's important to connect the principles. It's important to see how they fit together and how or whether they form an integrated, coherent theory. So that's important. But merely connecting the principles and seeing how they relate to each other wouldn't constitute a proof of the ethics. And if you think of a proof of the objectivist ethics in that way, of just connecting principles and reaching a conclusion, you'll simply wind up holding the objectivist ethics as sort of free-floating, connected set of ideas, disconnected from the actual facts and observations that those principles are supposed to integrate. So it'll be sort of floating in the air. And I think in that sense, objectivism will be perpetually unconvincing, as it should be, if that's the way you had held it. So for these reasons, what I would say primarily, and this is the main message here, is I would prioritize reading Ayn Rand's novels. And I would read them in chronological order, so starting with her first novel, We the Living, and then The Fountainhead and Anthem and Atlas Shrugged. Because what the novels do is the novels collect and present and dramatize a wide range of observations or types of observations about people and life and values and how they live their lives and what happens when different people live different kinds of lives. And it really highlights and puts the focus on, this is really what I'm talking about. An ethical theory is not just a free-floating set of propositions. It's a way of thinking about how people live their lives, how they ought to live their lives. And anyway, so there's just a lot of information and data and observations that are collected in the novels that are just, I think, essential for understanding her ethical theory. That said, what I want to do is I'll leave you with a recommendation for further study. It's a course, we have it on ARI's website on the section called Ayn Rand Campus. It's a course by Dr. Leonard Peikoff called Objectivism Through Induction. And I've embedded a link below here to the first lesson of that lecture. It's called An Inductive Approach to Philosophy. And what it will explains very well, but why I am recommending approaching objectivism in the inductive way that I am here. And it'll also give you a sense, as you kind of explore some of the other lessons in that course, it'll give you a sense of what it looks like to approach these issues inductively. It's an advanced course, but I think just start with lesson 1 of objectivism through induction, and that will lay the groundwork for a very different kind of way of approaching objectivism and approaching philosophy in general that I think is really valuable, whether you're a high school student, college student, or a long-time objectivist. So For those of you who haven't explored that yet, I think it would be very valuable, particularly from this aspect.